Hi everyone, welcome to our homework help for our 5OA2 homework sheet. This should look familiar. These are the notes we took in class today. We talked about how we use order of operations. We reviewed that. We reviewed PEMDAS. The P stands for parentheses, the E for exponents, the M for multiplication, the D for division, the A for addition, and the S for subtraction. We remembered our wrap. Parentheses first, exponents next, multiplication and division in the same step. Addition and subtraction, if you've got the nerve, from left to right, first come, first serve. And then we talked about giving someone directions to write these different expressions, these groups of numbers using different operations. And we said when we give directions to places, so for instance, if we gave directions to Project Playground, my directions might be different from someone else's directions, but they would still lead to the same place. And that's important to remember as we look at verbal expressions, or expressions that we're speaking with our mouths. This, if you can think of it as giving directions to a friend on what they should write down to solve, that's a perfect way to think of it. These are the directions I would tell someone if I wanted them to write this expression on their board and solve it. We talked about our vocabulary words that are going to be very important to us. We said the answer to an addition problem is called the sum. The answer to a division problem is called the quotient. The answer to a subtraction problem is called the difference. And the answer to a multiplication problem is called the product. Those words are going to be super important to us because they're going to indicate when we need to use parentheses or when we need an answer before we continue in our problem. So these are a sample of the notes that you should have in your trifold homework folders. We went through. We saw that it says add 3 and 7, then multiply by 3. This then indicates that adding 3 and 7 has to happen first. So we put parentheses around it. We want it to happen first. P is the first thing we do. Parentheses is the first thing we do. So we can put parentheses around 3 and 7. And then multiply by 3. If we had left those parentheses off, I would have been multiplying this 7 times 3. Now I can't do that because I need to solve for the addition first. On the second one, it says subtract the product of 5 and 8 from 50. I think this is the trickiest problem on the page for sure because there are a couple things in it that you absolutely need to remember. You'll see I have a huge star near this word from. Whenever you see the word from, you need to put a star there because that's where you're starting. That's the first number in your expression. You're subtracting from that number. You're starting with it and subtracting from it. So we start with 50. Then we need to subtract the product of 5 and 8. In this instance, these parentheses aren't actually necessary, but for the purpose of this lesson, we need to remember that when we see these words, these answer words like product, sum, quotient, or difference, we put those in parentheses. We need that answer first. So we are having 50 and we're subtracting 5 times 8 from the 50. Remember how important that from word is. Subtract 12 from 23, then multiply by 4. So again, I saw the word from, I looked next to it, saw the number 23. That means I have to start my expression with the number 23. We're taking 12 from 23. 12 from 23. 12 from 23. And then, so when we see the word then, it means put parentheses around that because you need an answer to that first, and then you can multiply it by 4. Multiply the sum of 6 and 3 by 2. We saw the word sum. We said that is an answer word, so we know we need to use parentheses. We know that sum means add is an answer to an addition problem, so it means we're adding the 6 and 3 and getting our answer and then multiplying by 2. So even though it said multiply at the start of our problem, that's not the first thing we're thinking of. We're looking at this answer word, the sum, and using that first. So the sum of 6 and 3, we need to find that first. Parentheses mean we're doing it first, so we put parentheses around it. The sum of 6 and 3 times 2. All right, so if we take a look at our homework here, some of these problems are a little tricky. Bear with me here. As you guys know, you just have to try, and then it's okay. We'll go over it tomorrow in class as well. The first one says, write an expression for the following. Do not solve. So don't do more work than you have to. You don't have to solve this. Subtract 6 from the product of 8 and 3. I see that from word. Put a star next to it. I need to see what's over here. The product of 8 and 3. I see an answer word. That's important too. That tells me I'm going to use parentheses. Product means the answer to a multiplication problem. So I'm going to have to put parentheses around this 8 and 3 and then subtract from it. I need this first because it says from. Look over to what's after from because that's what's going first in your problem. So the product of 8 and 3, product means multiply, so 8 multiplied by 3, close my parentheses, and then I'm subtracting 6 from it. Subtracting 6 from the product of 8 and 3. Let me show you what would have happened if I didn't do that. So I know it says not to solve, but we want to check and see that our answer is reasonable. If I did this, I would have 24 minus 6. Doable. I could solve that. If I had done this wrong and I didn't understand what that from meant, my problem would have been 6 minus 8 times 3. This isn't a reasonable answer. We don't do negative numbers in 5th grade. So you would end up with 6 minus 24. If I only have 6 things, I can't take away 24. That's unreasonable. It's wrong. Check and make sure your answers make sense. Our next question. This is the one that I'm not really a fan of because I think they messed up and they forgot to give us a little fact here, but we'll look at it anyway. Braden has collected 230 baseball cards. He gave away 67 and then purchased 112 more. The next week he received double the amount he had for his birthday. Write a numerical expression that represents the amount of baseball cards Braden had. Now when I looked at this, the first thing I thought of is I don't actually know the amount he had for his birthday. It never mentions his birthday up here. I'm going to assume that Braden had collected 230 baseball cards. He gave away 67 and then purchased 112 more. I'm going to assume that he had 230 for his birthday because that's what we're starting with, but I really don't know. If you have a different answer or you interpreted this question a different way, that's fine. So he starts with 230 baseball cards. I'm reading a second time in order to understand. He gave away. Gave away means subtract in my head, so I'm going to circle that, and I'm going to put a minus there. I'm evaluating it. He gave away 67 and then purchased 112 more. More means addition to me. He's getting more. The next week he received double the amount he had for his birthday. Double is an action word. Double means multiply by 2. Write a numerical expression that represents the amount of baseball cards Braden had. I'm going to be using some big numbers, but again, it said we don't have to solve this. So when you think about these stories, you want to think about what the person is starting with because that's going to be your first number in your problem. Braden has collected 230 baseball cards, so he's starting with 230 baseball cards. Then he gives away 67. And then he purchased 112 more. The next week, he received double the amount he had for his birthday. So we're going to say he had 230. So this is the next week. So this is happening separately. The next week, he received double the amount he had for his birthday. So he had 230, and we know that double means to multiply by 2. Now let's look at our question. Write a numerical expression that represents the amount of baseball cards Braden had. So we're going to look at this and we're going to say, okay, this is where he started. He started with 230, he got rid of 67, and then he added 112. This is where he started. I can put parentheses around that because I know that's his starting point. And then he got double this 230 amount. So we have 230 minus 67 plus 112. And in addition to that, he got 230 baseball cards. He got double 230 baseball cards. So this is how we figured out what he had before getting double. That problem is really confusing, and if you felt stuck, it's because of the way it was written. It's not because of your brain. Please keep that in mind. Let's move down here. Write an expression for the following words. Triple the sum of 4 and 4, and then subtract 11. There are 3 action words in here, so that means we're going to have 3 operations. Triple is an action word. Triple means multiply by 3. See the word sum. Sum is the answer to an addition problem. I see the word subtract, so we're going to put a minus sign. So triple the sum of 4 and 4, then subtract 11. I know that I want to use parentheses whenever I see sum or any type of answer word. So sum, the sum of 4 and 4. It says triple the sum. So in order to triple, I know triple means times 3. So in order to triple it, I'm going to multiply it by 3. I'm going to use brackets because I want all of that to happen because it says then subtract 11. So only after I've done all of this, everything before that then, will I subtract 11. So I have some parentheses and brackets. Really didn't need those brackets, but they help me think it through. And again, we do not have to solve. It just says write an expression. Interpret the numerical expression and write the expression. Do not solve. So interpret means try and turn it into word form. So we're starting with 254. However, if I think about order of operations, I actually know that I start with the parentheses. So the parentheses say 32 times 9. It's in parentheses, so I want an action word. I want that answer word. What is the answer word for a multiplication problem? My answer to a multiplication problem is the product. So I have 254, and I'm adding the product of 32 times 9. So you could say the product of 32 and 9 plus 254. You could say, big old or there, 254 plus the product of 32 and 9. Either one would work. And there are probably other options too. Remember, when we give directions, the directions are different, but we arrive in the same spot. This says write a numerical expression for subtract 13 from the product of 4 and 7. So they want an expression, a numerical expression for this. Subtract 13 from the product of 4 and 7. Subtract means we need a minus sign. And then the product is the answer to a multiplication problem. When we see answer words, we know we want parentheses. So we're finding the product of 4 and 7. I see from. From's a big word because it means I'm starting with what's behind the from. From the product of 4 and 7. So I need to find this first. So I'm going to make my parentheses. The product of 4 and 7. And we're subtracting 13 from the product of 4 and 7. 13 from the product of 4 and 7. Part B says compare the value of the expression from part A with the value of the expression 5 times the product of 4 and 7 minus 13. So it wants us to compare the value. So we do have to solve now. 4 times 7, 7, 14, 21, 28 minus 13. I'm in double-digit numbers, so I'm going to line this up vertically just to make sure I don't have to carry anything over. 8 minus 3 is 5. 2 minus 1 is 1. My answer to this is 15. When I go to solve this, I start with my parentheses first, and I follow PEMDAS within those parentheses, so I see multiplication. That's what I need to do first. 4 times 7 is 28, and then minus 13 times 5. These parentheses are still here. I haven't completely taken care of them. I know from my previous problem, 28 minus 13 is 15 times 5. Could you have been able to tell that this number was going to be smaller than this number? If you had looked carefully, you'd see that this product of 4 and 7 minus 13 is in this problem. Except in this problem, the answer is getting multiplied by 5. When you multiply something, does it get bigger or smaller? If you went on to solve, you would find that 15 times 5 makes a larger number. Your product is a large number. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. The answer is 75. So it says compare the value. We need to compare these two. So we have 4 times 7 minus 13 compared to 5 times 4 times 7 minus 13. This one's bigger. This one gives us 75. Alright, and just so you have it, your spelling list for the week, we're focusing on the prefix post. Post means after. So your words are postmark, postcard, post-war, post-season, postpone, postgraduate, post-production, postscript, post-date. So one of the fun things we learned today is postscript is what PS stands for when you write PS on a letter, because script means writing. So it's post-writing, after writing. It's a thought you have after you write the letter, so you have to add a postscript at the bottom, a PS. You thought of it after. That's an easy way to remember that post means after. We'll go over our homework tomorrow in class, and I can't wait to see you all. Bye.